Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for this webinar. My name is Siwan Howardson and I'm a dairy scientist at AHDB Dairy. I'm delighted to bring you tonight's webinar on resource efficiency on EuroDairy pilot farms. Our presenter today is Sylvain from France, and the co-author of this presentation is Jouke Onima, a scientist at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Tonight's webinar is being delivered as part of the EuroDairy Network. This network includes 14 countries from Ireland to Poland and Sweden to Italy. It aims to put farmers at the centre of practice-based innovations by sharing knowledge and solutions. You can find out more about EuroDairy by visiting www.eurodairy.eu. Tonight's webinar has proved very popular with nearly 60 registrations from dairy farmers, vets, nutritionists, consultants and researchers from 10 countries right across Europe and the world. So the plan for tonight is that Sylvain will run through his presentation, which will take around 30 minutes, and then there will be time for comments and questions at the end. You will all stay muted throughout the webinar, but if anyone would like to ask a question, then please type your question into the box on the right-hand side of your screens. I will then ask Sylvain and Jouke your questions at the end of the presentation. We will aim to finish up within the hour. So without further delay, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for tonight. Sylvain is an engineer specialising in agronomy and environment at the French Livestock Institute, EDEL, and has been working there since 2012. Sylvain overlooks the environmental assessment of dairy farms, focusing on the thematics of nitrogen and nitrate and their environmental impacts. So without further delay, it's over to you, Sylvain.
Welcome, good morning, everybody. My challenge is to give you in half an hour an overview of the main facts and figures concerning the resource efficiency aspect of the EuroDairy pilot farms. Just few words, because I was not alone to do this work, and even if you only listen to my voice, I really want to thank Jouke Onima from Wageningen and all our partners involved in the work package, working on the resource efficiency in the EuroDairy project. And I want to thank Thomas Anderson, our package leader from TGS in Denmark. So I will just to give you some facts and figures about the EuroDairy project on first time, and introduce the resource efficiency part, and just make some relation between resource efficiency and economic aspect. So a few words about the EuroDairy pilot farm network. So we have 120 pilot farms across Europe in 48 regions. So and in 14 countries. Some facts and figures global on the pilot farm networks, and about the global overview of the dairy production in the EuroDairy pilot farms. So in this project, we had more than 16,000 hectares dedicated to milk production, with more than 10,000 hectares of grasslands and 6,500 hectares of arable lands. All the pilot farms globalize around 20,000 cows, and in 2016, more than 181,000 tons of milk were produced. Of course, this production was made with farmers, and in the project we have 230 farmers, family units, and also more than 300 hired labor. What is very interesting in this project and in these networks is that we have a huge diversity of milk production, of dairy system, of a lot of things. First thing, the number of cows. We have farms with less than 20 cows. For example, in Poland we have farms with only 14 cows, but we have in France a farm with more than 800 cows. Huge diversity in the agricultural area, from 0 hectare in Denmark and some farm in France, for example, till more than 900 hectares in Sweden. We have also stocking rate very different in our network, from 0.3 livestock units per hectare in Finland to more than 5.8 livestock units in Portugal. Finally, when we take a look to the labor, the total family plus hired labor, we have from 0.3 labor per hectare in Finland to 5.8 in Portugal. How to describe the dairy systems, because it's very interesting to take a look to the different systems we can have in this network and in Europe in general. We can take some information, some indicators, like the type of land use, if we have permanent or temporary grasslands, arable land, if grazing is made on the farms, what is the milk production per hectare and per cow, what is the use of inputs, feed concentrates or fertilizer, and if we have conventional or organic farms. We don't use the size of the herd and the total milk production. Also, we can describe with this indicator, but why this type of description? It's not to compare region per region or to compare country per country. The objective of the work we done is to integrate the regional and the country context, because we saw that we have a lot of region, a lot of country, and the climate and the environmental regulations can be different. So it's very difficult to compare the dairy farms region per region, region between regions. Is not our objective. And we want to analyze the room for improvement in each system. So, with which indicators we can do the comparison, or we can do the analysis? The main I will focus on is the nitrogen, the mineral balance, the nitrogen balance. What is the difference between the inputs, the nitrogen inputs on the dairy part of the farms, and the nitrogen outputs? So the inputs are the elements that are mobilized to produce the outputs. So it's the mineral or the organic fertilizer who are purchased or import to the on the farm. The feed concentrates, the forage, the symbiotic fixation is also used, and the animals, if you buy animals on the farms. And the outputs are, of course, the meat produced on the farms, but also the meat and the manure or the forage who are produced on the farm and not used on the farm. The farm is not, we don't take a look on what is did on the farm, the manure produced on the farm, the forage and the cereal used on the farm. We consider the farm like a black box. So we just take the inputs and the outputs, and the difference it's the nitrogen surplus, the nitrogen balance. And where goes this nitrogen surplus? You can find here the scheme of the nitrogen cycle in a dairy farm with all the same information concerning the inputs and the outputs, the animals, the feed, the milk, and the meat produced. But we can saw in this cycle that a part of the nitrogen on the nitrogen surplus is lost to the air, to the water, and to the soil. And it's a potential, this surplus is a potential impact on the environment. So the aim is to reduce this nitrogen surplus, to decrease the losses to the environment, and of course, reducing this nitrogen surplus can be profitable for the farm economy. So we also take other indicators to analyze the different dairy systems we have in the project. So we use the nitrogen inputs, of course, but also the milk productions. And here you have the milk production in liters per hectare. So you can find on this graph the nitrogen inputs in the axis in the milk production. So we have on the left side the low input systems with few inputs. The inputs here are expressed in kilogram of nitrogen per hectare. So on the left side, the low input systems, low inputs, and also milk production quite few. And on the right, the high input systems, a lot of nitrogen inputs in this kind of system. So two kinds of systems, low inputs and high inputs. We can also take a look to the different level of productivity, the intensity of production, so the intensity in milk production in liters per cow, but also the milk production in liters per hectare. And we can have different kind of system. Here on the left side, the low intensive systems, low intensive per cow or per hectare, with some farms with milk production per cow above 6,000 per year, liters per year, but also milk production per hectare above 10,000 per hectare, liters per hectare. On the right side, you have the high intensive systems, high intensive per cow, but low intensive per hectare. Sorry, you have also the high intensive system, high intensive per cow, and high intensive per hectare. You produce a lot of milk per cow, but also a lot of milk per hectare. And in the middle of these three kind of systems, you have the moderate, the system with moderate intensity. So all this kind of information can be globalized, and we can describe in the EuroDairy project 10 types of systems according to the level of inputs and the production intensity. You have, for example, the high input system and high intensive, high input system, high and high intensive, mainly found in Portugal, where the main information, the main characteristic are they have 100% of arable land. They produce a lot of milk per hectare and a lot of milk per cow. And they have a lot of nitrogen inputs and a nitrogen balance above 500 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. You have the high moderate intensive systems with 70% of arable land, so that is to say 30% of grasslands. They produce less milk per hectare than the first one systems, but quite the same level of milk per cow. The nitrogen inputs are lower than the first one, and the nitrogen balance is also lower than the first one systems. And we can find this kind of systems in five countries, 4 or 5 regions in Europe. We have the high input systems based on grasslands for stocks in Netherlands with a lot of grasslands. We also have the high input system on mixed land for stocks, the high input systems on grasslands with grazing, mainly found in Ireland or in the United Kingdom, with a lot of grasslands in this kind of systems. A level of milk production per cow lower than in the other systems, and also a milk production per hectare quite moderate. And you have a nitrogen balance about 200 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. We have also the moderate input system on mixed land without grazing, or the moderate input system on mixed land for stocks with and intensive on animal, mainly found in Sweden and in Finland. And we have the low input system on mixed land with grazing in France and in Poland, with a few production of milk per hectare and a few production of milk per cow. And finally, the organic systems, who are found in all the region. What is important, in fact, is not really to compare system per system. I said that our objective is not to compare region per region, but also but what is done in each system and what is the room for improvement in each system. Here you can have an information on the land use, and we have global information concerning the place of the grasslands in these systems. We can find in the first on the left the first systems I described, the one who are found mainly in Portugal. We know that in this region the paleoclimatic conditions do not allow to produce a lot of forage, so there's no good potential for grasslands. So we have a specific type of system in this region. The third, for example, is also the systems found in the Netherlands with a lot of grasslands. It's because of specific conditions concerning the nitrate directive and the possibility of derogations. It's quite the same in Ireland. We have a derogation. It's possible. It's allowed to have more than 130 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare, and the difference between the third and the systems in the Netherlands and in Ireland is the possibility to not the possibility is the grazing system, and at least we have the mixed system in the last systems with arable land and grassland with or without grazing. What we can see in the pilot farm network is a difference in the use of feed concentrates that is linked to the forage system. We have grazing system with a low use of concentrates, and we have the forage system based on stock, where we have more use of concentrates. And when we look at this different level of feed concentrates in each system, we can see a large variation inside each system. That is to say, we can have in this on this question room for improvement, because in each system maybe we can improve the use of concentrates. Here this information is given in quantity in gram of concentrates per liters of milk. What we can describe also is that when you have a lot of inputs, you have a lot of productivity. More inputs equal more productivity. Here you have on the left side the low and moderate input systems, the systems who are quite extensive with a few inputs, but also a milk production per hectare is under 10,000 kilograms per hectare. You have more on the right side the very high input systems with high productivity, with a lot of inputs, and milk production per hectare was quite important, more than 50,000 kilograms of milk per hectare. And in the middle, you have the high input system, but with intermediate productivity, with inputs and milk production per hectare with in the middle of the first one on the two first systems. But more productivity equal more losses, and more inputs are equal more losses. You have here a graph with the total nitrogen inputs. That is to say, the inputs in the fertilizer and the feed, and the nitrogen balance, so the nitrogen surplus. And we can see that in the low and moderate input systems and extensive systems, the nitrogen balance, the nitrogen surplus is lower than in the very high input systems and with high productivity. The nitrogen balance in kilogram per hectare, the surplus is quite different in each systems. We can see that in the first one, in the high input system, high intensive, the nitrogen balance is above, the average is more than 500 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. But like in the precedent slide, we can see a big variability in each bulk plot, and that is to say, we can have possibility to improve this nitrogen surplus in each system. This is there is a room for improvement in each system. So I said that we tried to make a link with economy, and we use different indicator calculated on the European dairy farmers methodology. The total costs, the family farm income, the entrepreneur's profit, 1 and 2, and a break-even point. And in this presentation, I focus on two main indicators: the family farm income and the break-even point. So this break-even point is the milk price needed to cover the full economic costs. So how to analyze resource efficiency and economic performance together? The methodology we use is by analyzing farm indicators inside each system, and we decided that the best farms have to combine a good nitrogen surplus and good economic performance. And what is a good performance? for the selected indicators, these indicators have to be lower than the average in each systems, not in all the pilot farms network, but in each systems, in the 10 systems. So at least, for example, the nitrogen balance for the 10 best farms, so for the best farm in each system, in average, this mean nitrogen balance for this 10 best farms was 80% less than the EuroDairy than in the EuroDairy network. So the best farms for each systems have a better nitrogen surplus in the type of systems. For the farm income, it's quite the same. In average, these 10 best farms have a large better farm income. You have only one farm who this farm income is lower than the average of this type of systems. It's concern the low input system on mixed land with grazing, mainly found in Brittany, in France. But as I said, we focus not only on the farm income, but also on others economic indicator. And for example, for the break-even point 2, for the test 10 best farm, we saw that in 9 of the 10 best farms, this break-even point is lower than the average of each system. And globally, for these 10 best farms, we have in average 19% less than the EuroDairy network on this indicator. So, how to explain the results of the pilot farms? Which strategies they have made to be better than the average farms in each systems? We saw, in fact, that they have a better efficiency, and the strategy is based on less use of inputs, with or not more outputs. So you produce the same quantity of milk by using less feed, less concentrates, or less fertilizer than the other farms in the same systems. You can have more inputs, but more outputs in the same type of systems. But also farms can combine other outputs than milk production, mainly to have a good economic results by producing energy, or by producing more meat or more beef. So in conclusions, what we can say is that this kind of project and this pilot farm networks can allow us to better understand the diversity of technical and environmental performance of dairy farms in Europe. We can show that climatic conditions can limit forage resource and can limit protein self-sufficiency, and also that is very difficult and it's not very easy to find the better way to analyze all the information. That we can conclude that there are room for improvement in each system, and the keywords is nitrogen efficiency at different level, on field level, on co-level, also on the farm level. And also that environmental, and it may be the main information, and what we have to keep in mind is that the environmental performances are not incompatible with good economic results. And of course, vice versa. So I thank you, and I hope that my English was not too bad. But yes, if you have questions, I try to answer, and Jouke will be here to assist me in this work.
Great. Thanks a million, Sylvain. If I can just ask you to go back to your last slides, just so we're not looking at a black screen, that's perfect. Thank you. So while I'm waiting for some questions to come up, I'd just like to remind everyone that tonight's presentation has been recorded and will be available to watch back on the EuroDairy website, along with all the other webinars from the last 3 years. So please do take a look on the website to catch up with any webinars that you may have missed. You can type your questions in the little box on your right-hand side of your screen. They're starting to come in now, but just before we start on the questions, I'll just like to remind everyone that the final EuroDairy webinar will be taking place tomorrow night, focusing on zero grazing systems for feeding homegrown forages. The presentation will be given by Debbie McConnell from AFBI in Northern Ireland. So please do sign up for that webinar if you haven't yet. So Jouke, you are unmuted now as well, so please feel free to join in with the questions.
Thank you.
So to kick us off, we have a question from Thomas. Thanks, Sylvain, for an interesting presentation giving an overview of the situation on the EuroDairy pilot farms. On slide 16, you showed that high N input is linked to high productivity, and on slide 17, you had high N input giving high N surplus. But how do you expect this surplus to be compared with productivity? Can you have high productivity together with low surplus?
I can come back to the presentation, or
do you want me to repeat the question?
No,
Okay.
no problem. No. No, I think it's quite when you have a high productivity, when it's expressed, mainly expressed in high productivity per hectare. Mainly, most of time you have a nitrogen surplus quite important. When you have high productivity only by cows, when it's expressed only by cows, as the nitrogen surplus is expressed in kilogram of nitrogen per hectare, if you have a lot of milk production per cow, but not milk production per hectare, the nitrogen surplus is not the same that if you have high productivity per hectare and per cow. So, yeah, I don't.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the next question. The question is from Valerie. She's asking if the analysis has been done on 1 or 2 years worth of data, and if it's 2 years worth of data, were the data consistent between the 2 years?
No, it was only done on the first year, so in the 2016, because we have also work to combine the 2 years, but here it's mainly focused on the first year of data collection, because we wanted to combine the economical and environmental and resource efficiency analysis. So on the first time we focus on the first year of data collection.
Great, thank you. So Valerie's just sent a comment saying, okay, thank you, we can check the second year later this month. So that's to come. There's another question here just asking, what about P? have we thought about P?
About phosphorus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I not included in this presentation because, like I said at the beginning, I only have half an hour
Yeah.
to present all the information. We of course have all we have we have other indicators to speak about resource efficiency, and phosphorus, of course, is one of the others indicator, and it's maybe quite the same than for the nitrogen, but I think that we have some work to do and to have all the indicators, but phosphorus is not forgotten in our analysis. It's just here, yes, because of the time and yeah. Maybe.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. A question's come in from Tim. Do you just account for the nitrogen in imported feed, or do you consider any nitrogen lost in the production of that imported feed? An easy question for you there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
want me
okay. I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Well,
It's okay.
I think the question was about if we also consider the losses of, for example, what is coming with if you imported the concentrator feed into the farm. Yeah. It was not included. We only focused on the farm level. So we don't take the cradle was not included in this analysis. Just only looking at the farm level. That was the system border.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. A question from a different term is there a report which details of these findings will be available?
I think that yeah, I think that we will put all the information on the data on the website of
Yeah.
EuroDairy with more detailed presentation. But also, I think that we will continue to work on this database and on the information to produce different articles or yes, but we want to valorize what was done in this project.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So keep an eye out on the EuroDairy website, Tim. All the reports will be uploaded onto the website before the end of this month. Yes. So just give a few more minutes to see if we get any other questions coming through. Just a reminder, you can type these in the little box on the bottom of your screen. So another question, any recommendation on basis of the analysis, which system was the best? Should some farmers change system?
No. There's no best systems. We have a description of 10 systems, and the 10 systems are not to be compared. It's very difficult to compare system per system, but the best system inside each system is the one who is the more efficient on the resource management, that is to say, on the fertilization and on the diet of the cows. The question is, are you producing the milk? how you express the genetic potential of the cows. If you use two concentrates in regards to the milk potential production of the cows, you maybe lose a lot of nitrogen. But if you adapt the diet, the nitrogen diet of the cows, you can improve your system. It's maybe simple, but I'm not a specialist in feeding strategy. But if you improve your efficiency at the core level, but also on the agronomy point of view, on the fertilization of forage or of crops, you can reduce the use of the inputs on your farm and reduce the nitrogen surplus.
Perfect, thank you. So a few more questions have come through. So the first one is there a danger that farms importing lots of feed will appear more efficient than those growing most of their own feed at home, with the associated losses of N?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah.
Yep. Is there a danger that farms importing lots of purchased feed will appear more efficient than those farms growing most of their own forages at home, with the associated losses of nitrogen?
Yes, of course. Is that there is if you want to use the farm efficiency, you have to look at that indicator with care. There is, of course, if you are dealing with a lot of imported of feed from outside, then the losses of the feed production is not included in the analysis. So you have to always look with care. If you want to compare farms looking concerning the efficiency, you have to be sure that the intensity of how much cows or milk production per hectare are more or less similar if you want to compare one or two farming systems. And of course, if you more rely on your own feed, then is in the analysis is also the losses dealing with that own production of feed is included in analysis.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a good and fair analysis, you should include it also the off-farm losses in an analysis. But in this project, it was not a real target. It was more a network project, and we don't have the data of all the import of feeds. Then you need also more data to do that kind of analysis.
In this case, we are more on the life cycle assessment methodology. Yeah.
Great, thank you. A question has come in from Brad. Thank you for the presentation. And there's a request. Will there be a webinar on phosphorus?
Why not?
So we currently don't have a webinar planned in for phosphorus, Brad.
Yeah,
but,
I agree. I agree. Of course, phosphorus is even important than nitrogen. In for example, maybe in some regions or countries, is phosphorus more important than nitrogen. But at this moment, we could not handle also about, and also what Sylvain was saying, we have only 35 minutes, and then you have to shift. So yeah.
Yeah, but there will be details on the phosphorus side of things on the website in the report.
Yes,
Another comments come in saying that they agree a webinar on phosphorus would be very useful, so something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you for those comments. So another question, is there any correlation of the nitrogen surplus with carbon footprint and methane emissions? And that question is from Tim.
Yeah, it's quite. of course, on the dairy farms and on every type of systems, on every type of farms, we have a link between carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle. But of course, we have also some relations between carbon footprint and nitrogen surplus. But it's not as easy as it looks to combine all the information concerning the methane emissions. The relations are quite difficult to assess. We don't take a look on these projects on the carbon footprint assessment because we need other information to analyze this part. But we have to keep in mind that even if for the nitrogen surplus or the carbon footprint of the milk, if you have a lot of inputs in fertilizer, in concentrates, maybe you have more nitrogen or a carbon footprint more important. But the results, the carbon footprint is mainly expressed in kilogram equivalent CO2 per milk of per liters of milk produced, and the nitrogen surplus is expressed per hectare. So it's not the same. It's not expressed with the same
No, I think
yeah.
Well, Sylvain, I think there is a kind of relation between nitrogen efficiency or surplus and carbon footprint, but there is a lot of interactions and contradictions within. If you want to do that kind, you need a very system analysis because there is a risk of pollution swapping.
Yeah.
And what I mean with pollution swapping is, if, for example, if you focus on reducing ammonia emission during manure application to your land, maybe then you can increase the nitrous dioxide emissions from the soil. Or as an example. For example, also, if you rely more on grass-based systems with a low input system, well, a diet with a lot of grass inside creates, for example, more methane emission. If you have a diet that is more rely on silage maize or on concentrates. So you have to. There are some weak, but what I said, there is some kind of pollution swapping, and you have to deal by that.
Yeah, it's quite difficult, in fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. James has sent in a question. Is there a direct link between protein level of diet milk urea and nitrates loss? If so, what is the sweet spot?
What is the weak spots?
Sweet. What is the best spot? What should they be aiming for?
There's a link between the urea content in the milk and the nitrogen in the nitrogen produced by the cows.
Nitrates loss, yes.
Yeah, but what is losses? It depends on the kind of systems. So it not only depends on the nitrogen content of the milk, but it depends on what is done with this nitrogen produced by the animals, and it's not as simple to give a clear answer. There's a lot of things that we can produce losses or not losses.
Okay. So another difficult question then. I'll just give it a few more minutes just to see if we get any final questions through this evening. Otherwise, we will bring the webinar to a close. Just give it a few more seconds in case someone's typing. Okay, so there doesn't seem to be any further questions. So I'd just like to round up by thanking you all for joining us and listening tonight. We've had a great turnout and great participation in this webinar. As we mentioned before, please visit the EuroDairy website for further information and to catch up with previous webinars and future reports on this subject. A very special thank you to Sylvain and Jouke for taking the time out of their busy day to deliver this webinar for us. And the recording will be available to watch back on the EuroDairy website in due course. All of those that have registered will receive an email alerting you when it's live on the website. Thank you all and good night.